There is a massive shift and expansion of human consciousness happening on our planet right now. And in this video, I'm going to share with you what 3D, 4D, and 5D consciousness means. Now, there are actually many different levels of human consciousness, all the way from 3D to 10D and beyond. But today we're going to talk mostly about 3D to 5D because that's what exists here on our planet. Now, 3D is what the majority of the planet is living within, and 3D is really the old paradigm as to how we live and exist in our world. Now, these different dimensions aren't actual physical places, but more so states of consciousness. Now, here on Earth, we're either living in 3D, 4D, or 5D, or a combination of all three. Now, the majority of people on the planet kind of go between 3D and 4D and go back and forth, and for some, they have transcended to 5D if they've done the work and have been able to let go of some of the limiting beliefs of the 3D level of consciousness. Now, 3D consciousness really is the old paradigm of having to hustle, having to grind, that I gotta get mine before you get yours, because if you get yours before I get mine, there's not enough for me. 3D consciousness is really rooted in lack, scarcity, fear, and overall disempowerment, being that we have to really grind and fight for what's ours. You know, nothing good comes without a lot of hard work, is the perspective that the 3D is really rooted in. Now, even though we're all living on the same planet and there are people of different levels of dimensional consciousness, we all coexist, yet we see the world in different ways. And those perceiving things from a 3D level of consciousness, their reality will be that of the 3D world. And for those who have transcended to 5D, their reality is completely different. You know, and in many of my posts and a lot of my Instagram stories, I tag choose your reality. And what I mean by that is our thoughts create our reality. And if we're having 3D thoughts, if our paradigm is based in scarcity, fear, lack, not worthy enough, then that's what our reality is going to seem. If we're the type of person that always assumes the worst case scenario, then that is what we are creating. If we're someone that speaks negatively, if we have a lot of resentment, anger, jealousy, guilt, shame, those lower vibrational emotions from our experiences that are keeping us in that 3D level of consciousness, well, then that is what our world is going to look like. You know, when you are in a 3D level of consciousness, you live by the mantra of, only the fittest survive, and that there's not enough out there. Money doesn't grow on trees, and we're living from a paradigm of finite resources. And if you think about how most companies operate, how even countries operate, we're going to war with one another because we believe that there's only so much to go around for a limited amount of people. When the reality is, we are living in an abundant, infinite universe. And there is no shortage of anything that we want in this world, including money, natural resources, and love. When operating from that 3D level of consciousness, fulfillment is also found in those superficial things. And I can see that most of my life, I've lived in that 3D level of consciousness where, I felt that money was hard to come by, only the rich got rich. And that if I wanted to have abundance, I had to work harder, I had to grind harder, and I had to just do whatever I needed to take to make that money. And I wanted that money to buy superficial things. Again, to satisfy those lower vibrational emotions that I was feeling. And I can now look back and see, wow, the majority of my life I have been living in that 3D level of consciousness. And when living and operating from that 3D level of consciousness, it's actually quite disempowering because we believe that our thoughts have no control over our environment and life is just happening to us, and that whatever happens in life is a coincidence. We don't believe that we can actually create our reality. Now, in that 3D state, we avoid getting deep. We avoid looking for the things that are within our shadows. We tend to keep things very superficial, and we don't really dive deeper into understanding the real significance and meaning of things. But many people that are living at that 3D level of consciousness right now are kind of waking up, and they're realizing, well, there's got to be more to life than this. With all the changes that are happening due to the pandemic, people are stopping and questioning their purpose, questioning their significance. And this is why the pandemic and everything that's happening is really causing human consciousness to expand and grow at exponential rate, because it's almost bumping people out of that 3D level of consciousness, causing them to go deeper, causing to ask questions, and this is what's helping them elevate to the fourth dimension of consciousness. 4D level of consciousness is the gateway between 3D and 5D. Now, when you're in 4D, it is easy to slip back into 3D, but once you go from 4D to 5D, then you're not going back to 3D, because you now know there's another way. Now, the 4D level of consciousness is really what I've been going through for, I'd say, the last 2 years, where doing the inner work and really letting go of those low vibrational emotions, letting go of the things that used to kind of hold me back, keep me in Toronto, the reasons why I was in nightlife and restaurants for so long. When I let go of all that and I start to question, well, what is my purpose? How can I be of service? What do I want my future to look like? That's when I start to enter that fourth dimensional state of consciousness, which is what I believe many people are transcending to right now. Many of you who are watching this video right now, I guarantee you are at 4D consciousness. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this content. You're asking yourself, why am I here? What do I want out of life? What do I want my future to look like? What can I do that's really purposeful and of service? And when you're at that 4D level, you now start realizing life can be a different way. Life doesn't have to be like it once was, because you're now starting to experience what transcendence feels like. And this is when you start moving to things like contribution, fulfillment, you start practicing meditation, you start doing things that help you get connected to your true self, to your source. As you start to transcend to 4D, you start paying more attention to your inner world with meditating, breath work, yoga. You start being more conscientious about what are you eating, what are you putting in your body. You start to go within and understand the importance of great health and mindset and your energetic state. You also begin to get very conscious and aware of who is around you and how much energy you're putting out and whose energy are you absorbing. And one of the most beautiful things about being in that fourth dimensional state is you begin to understand that you can create your world, and that life is exciting and adventure, and that you deserve it all. In the fourth dimensional state, you also start to operating with all 6 senses, and you start to realize the power of energy, the concept of manifestation, and you realize that things aren't just happening by coincidence, but that we can actually control the outcome and play a part in how we create our future, how we manifest things, and that energy and consciousness are a real thing. We start tapping into those senses that we have available to us. Now, the most beautiful thing about 4D level consciousness is you really start to understand intuition and energy. You start to understand that these higher levels of consciousness help you to manifest and create anything that you want. And as you seek a deeper meaning of life, you start to see and notice the synchronicities and the magic of the universe, and begin to believe that you are always supported. When you've spent some time in 4D consciousness and you start to see that we can really create our worlds, and as you deeper your journey within and get more deeply connected to your source, to your spirit, you then transcend into 5D level of consciousness. And this is where I'm happy to say that I feel I'm at in my journey. I'm making that step from 4D to 5D. I still get pulled back every now and then. I still have those fears about money and, am I worthy, and those things that come up from time to time. But in doing the work every day, in meditating, journaling, spending time in nature, I'm reminded that the universe is always supporting me, and we can truly create our life however we want. Like I say many times, choose your reality. Now, one of the big things I've learned from this 5D level of consciousness is the concept of we are all one. I've heard that for many, many years, but it wasn't until last year that I really got to experience that we are all energy. Everything is energy. And we are all swimming in this giant pool of energy. So of course we are all connected, and we are all one, because we are all energy. We are just energy in different forms and shapes. In shifting to this level of consciousness, I've also come to understand that life is an adventure, and there's no good or bad. No matter what happens, it's happening for you. and that there is something beautiful and powerful and beneficial to learn even when something bad happens to you. It is a gift. And when you can switch to that or elevate to that level of consciousness, you can see that in all good and all bad, there is beauty and lessons for you to learn and evolve from. I've also come to discover that everything has a purpose. Every one of you watching this video, you are here for a reason. You have a higher purpose. You are not here just to work a 9 to 5, to buy a house, to have a mortgage, to have 2 cars, a wife or husband, 2.5 kids, grow old, retire, and then die. That's not what you're here for. You have a purpose. And if you are watching this video, I promise you, you are already beginning your journey, or maybe you're well into your journey of finding your purpose. And that's what 5D consciousness is all about. It's about transcending to that place of service, contribution. Who do you want to be in the world, for your family, for yourself? You start to ask yourself those questions and live into that possibility of who you are becoming.